Hello, my name is Juliana Bonin Ferreira, and I'm a clinical assistant professor in swine health and production at the North Carolina State University. I'll focus on the review of PRRS virus clinical signs and economic impacts. The disease was first recognized in the late 80s, and it was called like the mystery swine disease because no one had no idea what was happening, or like blue ear pig disease based on the fact that like pigs would become cyanotic and then like they would have like purple ears or blue ears. It was only identified in North America in 1992, and till today it's endemic with high prevalence. It's the #1 economically important disease in swine, and it's a #1 cause of infectious reproductive issues in swine. So that's a disease that you really have to be aware of and make sure that you don't introduce it into your herd. And if it's already on your herd, make sure that it's you can make it under control and stable so you won't lose money. Virus can persist and can be shed by animals for more than 220 days. So that's a long time of virus shedding. And it costs like the swine industry in the US like approximately like 700 million per year. So it's very costly. The virus belongs to the family Arteviridae, and it's a single-stranded enveloped RNA virus, and it has like an inherently high mutation rate. So like any other RNA virus, I can cite like in here flu, coronavirus, they mutate a lot, and that's what make them like very important, and that's how they are able to escape immunity and how they are able to escape like vaccines. It has 9 open reading frames, and the OR5, it's the most diverse gene that they have, and that's where most of the mutations happen. And those OR5s are used for creating those phylogenetic trees where we would find the different strains of PRRS that we have circulating and how similar or homologous they are, or how different or heterologous they are. We have the type 1 PRRS, that's the European one, and we have like the type 2 strain, that's the US one. It has, like as I mentioned, large genetic variations, so with a variable virulence and variable cross protection. So again, they can be, the virulence can vary based on the type of strain, and depending on the type of strain, you can have cross protection or not. Multiple isolates can coexist in a herd, so I can have like different strains happening at the same time into a particular herd. Those isolates may recombine and generate new isolates, so they change like their genetic material and create a new strain. And this can also include like the modified live vaccine. So you have a live virus that was introduced into your herd through a vaccine, and then you can have a wild type like being introduced to your herd, and then they can generate like new isolates if they change their genetic material. Transmission, like the pathogenesis, a little bit of that. So transmission is through direct contact. It can be through vertical transmission, so from mom to the offspring. It can be transmitted by the boar semen. It has predilection for macrophages, lymphoid organs, and lungs. And in the acute phase, that can last 2 weeks, that when we see like a lot of viremia and shedding, and the chronic phase can last 4 months, where they're gonna present like long-term respiratory and reproductive disorders. Like on these first 2 weeks, that's the best time if you are collecting blood samples to detect like PRRS. It has to be done when they have like the viremia happening. After that time, like you won't be able to detect the virus in the bloodstream, and then you would have to rely on other tests and check for antibodies. And in the chronic phase, like it can last for 4 months, as I mentioned. So, and then you can try to detect like the virus, like in the nasal secretion, in the so you can do oral fluids, you can do processing fluids. So there are any types of detecting like the virus. Moving to clinical signs, so it will all depend on the immune status of the herd. So that's very important. Is your herd naive? Is your herd already exposed to this particular strain? Is your herd vaccinated with a particular PRRS strain, and you know that like the PRRS circulating in your area is the one that you vaccinate those animals for. So that's important. Virulence of the isolate. So again, the strain, it's very important. You have like mild strains and you have like very aggressive strains. Clinical cross protection. Again, your herd was infected with a particular strain of PRRS, but it's very similar to another PRRS strain, so they cross protect against each other. And age of group affected. So age, it's very important as well. The younger are more naive and susceptible. If we're talking about sow farms, when introduce gilts into herds, they are more susceptible. So age, it's very important as well. Respiratory signs, it will be presented like in all ages, more in younger pigs. It's more like an influenza-like illness. And the respiratory signs, they're what we call like non-pathognomonic signs. We can't like say, okay, my pig's coughing, so it's PRRS. It can be PRRS, it can be influenza, it can be mycoplasma, it can be PCV. So there are many other diseases that produces coughing, off feed, lower average daily gain. So that's what we call like pathognomonic signs, no pathognomonic signs. But those signs are present with PRRS when they show respiratory signs like lethargy, depression, coughing. They will be off feed. They will have like lower average daily gain. They will show thumping. That's very hard breathing that you see on farms that have infected animals with PRRS. Clinical signs, reproductive clinical signs. So naive herds, they would have like multiple reproductive issues across the herd. Age and parity, it's very important. So younger animals like the gilts that you bring into your herds will be more susceptible because they are naive. Parity is important because it's associated with age. Abortions can happen early, mid, and late gestation. So it's important to differentiate from others' repro problems. Poor conception rates. Return to estrus that can be regular or irregular. You will see like stillborn mummies, weak-born pigs, low litter size. So you start to see like animals with very few live-born animals, and also pseudo pregnancy. If you have a herd that's partially protected because it has been exposed at some point, either through a wild strain or vaccination, you're going to have usually late-term abortions. You can still see weak-born pigs, increased pre-wean mortality, increased PRRS-associated issues in the downstream pig flow, and can be seen in animals not exposed to the strains, like the younger parities. Some post-mortem lesions for the repro problems, like it will be abortion mummies. So that's something that's not like lesions after a post-mortem exam. Through a post-mortem exam, like we can see lesions in the lungs, like interstitial pneumonia and enlarged lymph nodes. It's very important and can be kind of a giveaway like of PRRS and multifocal to lobular to diffuse in distribution. So it can be lobular, but it can be diffuse as well. That's very important. And that's very typical with virus pneumonia. Okay. Enlarged lymph nodes, of course, there are other diseases that we can have, like very big lymph nodes like PCV. So again, we can just not rely on the enlarged lymph nodes to make a call. And of course, like, get your samples on your postmortem and submit and test like for PRRS and any other disease that you think that you might have circulating on your farm. Yeah, and with that, like I conclude like this portion of the training.